Hello all, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome to the newest episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. I'm Austin, and I'm a knockout, watched a lot of wrestling.
I'm David, I'm a noob, haven't watched nearly as much wrestling, and I am the most recent victim of the cataclysmic, Akira-like destructive abilities of the John, or no, not the John Cena, the Hulk Hogan film career.
Yes, unfortunately, so our last episode, we hyped that we're going to start a new arc. We're going to watch No Holds Barred.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, and I made a mistake here in that I made the assumption that if that no matter what, we would be able to do this through Amazon. You know, like Amazon Video of some sort, whether it's already on Prime or whether I had to buy the movie or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, and I don't know why, the video is listed as unavailable in my area, in my region. So it can't be watched. You can't buy it at all.
Man.
So there's literally...
must just be that bad.
WWE's locking it in the vault.
True.
Like Song of the South. Throw it in there.
It's literally WWE's Song of the South.
Yeah, so for what, and it's not even like it's on Peacock or the WWE Network for that matter. It's never been on those. It's never been on either of those. Why? I don't know why. I don't know why it's not available on Amazon Video. But point being, there is no way for us to watch the movie. So we are pivot shifting to something else.
Yeah, is that really such a tragedy though? With that good old 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, is that really such a tragedy?
You know, it's good and bad news.
Okie dokie.
So in the span of about, let's say 14 hours, I have put together a new idea.
Holy shit.
What we're going to do in this schedule arc here.
It's impressive. So
it's still going to be about Hulk Hogan because listen, he was kind of everywhere.
God damn it.
But instead, we are going to take a trip down. You know, a lot of the arcs on this show have culminated at SummerSlam by complete cosmic coincidence that I didn't intend for.
Oh my God.
So it's time to culminate at WrestleMania, I think.
Oh shit.
Yes, not just any WrestleMania. WrestleMania 3 in 1987. Headlined by Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. So we've done this storyline backwards in that our first two episodes down here in the golden era were pretty much covered a lot of the Hulk Hogan Andre drama, or at least the second half of it. You know, we had the match, the fake referee match. Excuse, not the fake referee, the twin referee match.
The plastic surgery twin.
Yes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and watch the first part of this rivalry, how it started, how it culminated at WrestleMania 3. So we're going to be digging deep into early 1987 WWF.
Ooh.
And so I've plotted this arc. Today we're going to be covering, and I guess it's a good time to talk about what we're going to be watching because the A show of WWF at the time was WWF Superstars. We watched an episode of that with Elizabeth to do the Macho Man wedding stuff.
Yes.
Unfortunately, most of that's not on the network. And the earliest episodes that are on the network is like late 1992. So you can watch like New Generation era WWF Superstars, where it was kind of co-A show with Raw. But you know, the Golden Age stuff, no, I don't have any of that. Goodbye.
Weird.
However, we are in luck because what we do have is primetime wrestling. Primetime wrestling was if WWF Superstars was the precursor to Raw in the sense that it was the A show where all the plot stuff happens, then primetime wrestling was the precursor to Raw in that it aired on USA Network on Monday nights.
Okay.
Yeah, so before Raw was in that time slot, they did primetime wrestling. And primetime wrestling was a studio show. Basically, the format of the show is you had Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon sitting in a studio, kind of riffing on what's going on in the WWF at the time, which is kind of like potentially the biggest appeal of primetime wrestling is watching their interplay. And then everything else. But then during the show, what they would do is they basically recap the important bits from WWF Superstars, WWF The Wrestling Challenge. That was the B show. And they'd play like house show matches from the significant matches. Like they'd throw in these matches that they filmed when they were in Madison Square Garden. Or I believe a lot of these episodes on the matches on this episode are from when they did a show in Boston.
Oh my God.
So like not jobber squashes, actually. They're reruns, but they are matches between two named people.
Heaven. I'm in heaven. And my heart beats so that I can hardly speak.
Yes. So that we're going to be following this story played out on like first run through Superstars, but we're going to be following this plot arc a lot through their replays of this stuff that happened on primetime wrestling. It's the full segment and everything, but this isn't like how it originally aired. This was the rerun to be like, hey guys, here's the thing that happened this week. It's kind of important. You should know about it.
Rerun with some added riff commentary, I guess.
They don't commentate over that but they comment in between. So like instead of like the commercial break, like before and after commercial breaks, they are on screen for a couple of minutes and they just start just kind of riffing.
You know, I'd really love if they did it like during the match and was doing it like MST3K style. Mm-hmm. That would be so great.
We do have various commentary. They dubbed in or used the original commentary for a lot of all of the matches, and they use a wide variety of their commentators. Like they have Gorilla does matches, Bobby Heenan does matches, Jesse the Body Ventura's doing work. Lord Alfred Hayes, who normally is just a backstage interviewer, he does commentary on this stuff. So you're going to be hearing a lot of different voices.
Oh, okay, that's pretty dope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so kind of storyline, some basic overruns of storylines coming in is that Hulk Hogan is the WWF champion. Here's a shock for you.
Yeah. Wow! Imagine
what a shock!
Surprise.
And this is actually this art. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to show one segment from the January 19th episode. Yeah, January 19th sounds about right to me. Yes, the one segment from the January 19th episode of Primetime Wrestling, and then the full January 26th episode. So, yeah, because right now Hulk Hogan is the WWF champion of 3 years. Like he won the title in January of 1984. So this is literally kind of a 3-year anniversary for him as champion. It's great.
And did he hold it straight through?
Yes. This is his first run with the title he hasn't lost it.
Is this like the longest run with the title?
No, the longest run with the title would be in the 70s with Bruno Sammartino, who had the title for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the longest WWF championship reign in history.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, Bruno was only a 2-time champion, but he held it for 7 years, and then he held it again for 3 more years. So he's been a champion for literally a decade.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, that's just kind of the nature of it's the kind of thing that I don't think could work today because of the TV factor, in that like you see these guys every week, especially since they've made it a weekly thing. Like it's easier for a character to get stale. And so, whereas, back in Bruno's days or even in Hulk's days, they're not showing up on TV every week. They're not wrestling on TV hardly ever. When you're only going to see Bruno Sammartino wrestle like once a couple of times a month, realistically, because you're not going to follow. He's going to wrestle every town that they were, but he's not going to be like. But not the crowd's not the people who watch one of shows are going to see all the shows. So they're only going to see Bruno a couple times a month. So it's easy for that to not get boring to see him be the unbeatable champion for half a decade.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It's and by the way, one of those things that like I wish I could go like how to use a time machine for wrestling is I would go back to see the match where Bruno lost the title, because everything I've ever heard about that, like anecdotes, is that like basically like you could hear a pin drop in the crowd when it happened, when he lost. And it's like, I would love to see that, because obviously no video footage of that exists.
Yeah, that'd be so dope.
Mm. Anyway, so Hogan is the champ for 3 years, and in fact, they are going to celebrate Hogan being champion for 3 years. He's going to get a trophy. Keeping that in mind. Now the Intercontinental Champion, Macho Man Randy Savage. He was kind of as much of a big player on that title as Hogan was the WWF title. But right now, this is heel ass Randy Savage.
Oh, nice.
He's all in on this heel stuff. I believe he's already have done this in storyline, but I don't remember. I can't figure out when exactly it happened. But right now, his kind of most dastardly heel act was wrestling Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and he basically tried to smash his throat with the ring bell.
What?
Yeah, so Ricky is kayfabe injured because he got his neck smashed, his throat smashed by Savage, who was trying to take him out for good or whatever.
What the hell?
We're also getting a little bit of a casual. I don't know if they built to it yet or if they're going to start doing on the show, but also you get this. Oh yeah, you know what? No, what if I started by this point? Is you get this kind of as obviously a big part of heel Savage comes from he treats Elizabeth badly. Elizabeth should leave. So one of Savage's rivals right now is George the Animal Steel. George Steele is basically this big, burly, hairy, ugly kind of guy, classic wrestling archetype here. But he was originally this evil, mean heel character, but they turned him babyface, and he kind of became the lovable, crazy person. He rips turnbuckle pads open and eats the padding inside. It's delightful.
What?
It's quirky and fun.
What were the 80s? I'm going to be asking this a lot, this entire arc. What the fuck were the 80s?
Yeah, so George Steele is making a play at Elizabeth. He is the nice guy, but a kind of a big dumb idiot who is here for Elizabeth, that he would treat her so well, not like Randy Savage. And of course, this is not sitting well with the Macho Man at all. He ain't having none of this.
Shocker.
Yeah. Then some other, a couple of other minor points to talk about that I know are relevant to WrestleMania 3. So I'm pointing them out here. We're having a storyline. The tag team titles currently are held by the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid.
Wait, the British Bulldogs?
Yes, they were originally a tag team, the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid, the British Bulldogs. And then once the tag team kind of dissipated because Dynamite Kid's injuries kind of took him out of wrestling, he became the British Bulldog. Davey Boy Smith just took the title and kept it.
That's fair.
As a solo act.
I can roll with that.
Yes. They're the champions, and they're being chased by the Hart Foundation. Bret Hart,
of course
and
they are.
Neidhart. And we're kind of related to this is as we're running this storyline with a referee. They have a tag team title match coming up, but in the referee for that match coming up is also a man named Danny Davis. Danny Davis is a referee, but he's crooked, and I want to say it's blatant because that's the story they're telling, but not so blatant that he gets in trouble for it right now. But the idea is that he is giving the heels favorable calls in as subtle ways as he can to help them win. And everybody kind of knows that he's on the take, but not enough evidence for President Tunney to step in here. But everybody knows he's a crooked referee.
God, this is so interesting to me because we've alluded to this on the show before, and you've given me little glimpses of this, but referees as characters, this is it's something that I haven't really had the chance to familiarize myself with, because we'll watch shows and you'll point out referees by name, and I'm like, how do you know these people? How do you keep these people in line? And I know it's established. You talked about this before, that referees are characters and that they kind of have their own individual things going on. But we, at least in what we've watched, really rarely get to see that.
It's pretty come and go how much WWE tries to do that. And it's usually like there's only like a few characters wrestling referee characters I can tell you what their character is. You know, Earl Hebner is known for being the guy who did the screw job, and is also just kind of like old guy who ain't gonna get fucked with. Charles Robinson is like Little Nate in that he is like he has Ric Flair's hair, and so they like make jokes that he's basically like a Ric Flair fanboy.
Okay.
WCW leaned into that at one point.
Okay.
You have most of a couple of the AEW referees. I can tell you what their personalities are. Danny Davis we have the crooked referee. So like there's a few, but it's not as consistent. And I kind of have fun. I kind of enjoy referees having a little bit of personality.
Yeah, it seems like a fun aspect to wrestling that like even the refs get their own characters and kind of are their own identifiable like personas. And I wish I kind of saw them leaning more into that a lot more than I do, because like I do find it cool that you're able to pick out a lot of these refs by name, and it feels like this kind of like deep cut lore. And so getting to see that play out, I think will be a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's the reason I don't think it's as consistent is because like there's like differing philosophies on that. And it's a not uncommon sentiment, the idea that referees shouldn't be characters, that it takes away from the wrestlers for the referees to have a character. So that's why you see a lot of situations where the referee is just kind of there because it's of a belief. It's because it stems from a belief that like the focus should be on the wrestlers. Therefore, the referees are only going to be a distraction.
Well, no, that's understandable. I'm just saying like, I'm just saying like, even if it's like to a much lesser degree than the wrestlers, which I think is, you know, probably the right way to do it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it'd be fun to see a little more of that, because again, it feels like this cool deep cut lore to know even who the referees are.
But yeah, we're going to see the Danny Davis story play out alongside the tag team title situation. And then kind of a relatively minor one is that we have King Harley Race. So Harley Race is kind of like a legendary old school Southern wrestler. He's one of the greatest NWA champions ever. But by this point, he's getting older. He's here for the WWF paycheck. And he's a lower card guy at this point. Like he has some run-ins with Hulk Hogan, but otherwise doesn't really do anything significant. And I think he was cool with that too. I think he recognized like, I'm getting older, you know, not my time anymore. I'm good with this. But he's running with Bobby Heenan, and he won a proto King of the Ring tournament. You know, this was before they made King of the Ring like a pay-per-view. This was when this was like a house show gimmick of like the King of the Ring tournament. And in proper King of the Ring tradition, you win and being a king becomes your character, for better or for worse. Usually for worse.
Well, because I remember that with Owen when we finished up the whole King of Hearts thing. I mean, we didn't really see all that much of it, but that was something you highlighted, and we saw that in that one video package.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can see why. Like I get the feeling they could do that without that like overriding their characters
they could.
Too much.
Like there's definitely this period in like the late 90s, early 2000s where they just drop the whole shtick. Like you still win King of the Ring, but you don't literally become a king.
Is King of the Ring around anymore?
No, it's dropped. Like it's the kind of thing that every like 5 years or so, WWE will just be like, "Hey guys, we're doing a King of the Ring," and you're like, "Okay, okay, I guess we're doing that now."
Because I've seen like Booker. I've seen pictures of like Booker with King wear recently, and I was like,
Yeah, he's one of the better versions of the King of the Ring as a king shtick, because he went all in on being this goofball, like King Booker.
Yeah.
He went all in on it. But yeah, it's the kind of thing that like just everyone's at this point, it's like every several years WWE will be like, "Hey guys, King of the Ring time." And you're like, "Okay, I guess we're doing it again."
Okay. It's kind of patted on the head. Okay, buddy.
Okay, sure, we'll do it. But yeah, King Harley Race won. He's the king, and him and Heenan are obviously going wild at the idea of like, I'm the king. I'm legit. Winning a wrestling tournament is not a legitimate means of determining a governance or whatever.
Oh yeah. help! I'm being oppressed. The jobbers.
But he's run afoul of the Junkyard Dog, who is saying that you're king. I didn't vote for you.
I was wondering who I could make that reference with, so I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah. The Junkyard Dog.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
I didn't vote for you. But the Junkyard Dog is a bit of a weird character in that he comes from the Southern wrestling, and I'm gonna be honest, it was wrestling. Yes, I believe Bill Mid-South. Bill Watts, I want to say, is where he came from. But it's this weird thing where like the gimmick is kind of a little bit racist, I think. In that it's this black man calling himself the Junkyard Dog, and he's running around with a junkyard chain over his shoulders, and he's like talking like he's a dog. Like he's like, I'm gonna get that bone. I'm fine, give me a nice juicy bone.
Why?
The thing is, though, it worked really well as a babyface character. Like everybody loves it.
As a face?
Yeah, he's a babyface, and everybody loves it. Like he is one of the most beloved baby faces of this era of wrestling. The JYD, the Junkyard Dog.
You know, the fact that it's a face does make me a little bit more amenable to it as like a charming thing, because I feel like if it were a heel character, I would just like despise it from the first grunt.
Mm-hmm. But it's very amusing, and JYD has taken umbrage with King Harley Race because it's like, well, you know, this is a free country. We don't have kings here, and it's like it's a little like, dude, he's not literally a king of anything.
So he's literally doing, I didn't vote for you.
Yeah, he's literally like, you're not a real king. We don't have kings in this country.
My God.
So they're having a little bit of a spat on the low key, but that's going to lead to a match at WrestleMania. So I decided to bring it up.
Okay, I'm down. I'm here for it.
Yeah, and so that kind of covers where we need to be in 1987, in January 1987. You know, I wanted this arc originally to kind of like prove that the 80s can be fun.
Okay.
Even in something stupid. And now it's like, I don't really know what I'm going to get out of this. I threw it together last minute when I realized we couldn't watch No Holds Barred. So I'm hoping it's good.
I will say, like, seeing more of Hogan and Andre, I think could be a lot of fun. I do for as much as I will like never shut the fuck up about like squad Wing for Miss Elizabeth. I do really enjoy Randy Savage on a whole. So seeing more of him doing his like intercontinental title heel shtick, kind of full on, will be a ton of fun, because this is this pre or post Mega Powers?
Pre.
Okay, yeah, okay, I thought so.
Yeah, it's when he starts losing that title, that is when working towards losing the title. When we watch, that's when that Mega Powers happens.
Yeah, okay. So this is like earlier Savage, kind of the iconic Savage that a lot of people will associate with him. So seeing that'll be fun.
Especially aesthetically. This is like the iconic Savage time period.
Oh, dang. Okay. So we got the whole thing going. And I mean, you know, just the little side things you've thrown in have sound fun. I think it'll help too. This is kind of my prediction, is that I am a much different wrestling fan than I was when we first dove into the the golden age. I mean, I've softened a lot on wrestling tropes and come to have a little more of an appreciation and understanding of like the history and how it's still enjoyable even though it's goofy. So I'm interested to see, thanks to that, and with what seems like a pretty good lineup of things of content to consume here. that I might I might get some legitimate enjoyment out of this.
Yeah, I think this will be good. I know that WrestleMania 3 is actually a pretty decent WrestleMania, especially if you grade it on a curve of like the early WrestleManias are not as good as the later ones overall on the whole. So even on a curve, WrestleMania 3 is really good. So I'm excited to build to that.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard pretty good things about 3. I think that's one of the ones I hear is like one of the like maybe not legendary ones, but one of the ones that people like talk about.
It's definitely iconic for a few reasons that we'll get to when we get to WrestleMania 3. But it's very much an iconic Mania.
Okay, well then no. Lore. See, well this is exciting then. I'm looking forward to getting to catch into one of the iconic WrestleManias.
Yeah. All right. So, if you want to watch along with our content again, with our episode again, it will be the January 26, 1987 episode of Prime Time Wrestling, available on Peacock. $4.99 a month with ads, $9.99 without ads, or you can Google. I don't think the full episode is available anywhere if you just Google it, but like the segment with Hulk Hogan in it is absolutely easy to find. I'll say that.
I'm sure.
Yeah, the Hogan Andre stuff, very easy to find all of that. So
yeah,
definitely. So if you want to at least watch that stuff before we come back. You can
my beloved freeloaders can always check out our headline stuff with ease.
Yep. Anyway, see you guys in the back half.
Hasta luego.
And we are back. We have just finished the January 26, 1987 episode of Primetime Wrestling, as well as one little thing from the January 19th episode the previous week.
Yeah, just a little extra. Oh my goodness. Wow, wrestling used to be a lot different.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a very different production from what we get normally. Modern times.
This was super cool because I've seen little bits of clips here and there of like, the old days of wrestling. And we're catching the WWF pretty much at the tail end of that right here. And it's so bizarre to see it dressed up so utterly differently. It was really cool, though. It was super cool to see it this way. I've talked a lot in the past about how much I enjoy it sometimes when I get to sit back and pretend like the WWF is is a legitimate wrestling show. This, for the first time, felt like for the entire time, like they were pretending along with me. I've always questioned, like, how the fuck did people like ever get legitimately confused about whether or not kayfabe was a thing or not?
Mm-hmm.
And now I understand they play of this dead fucking straight.
Yeah, they do. They try really hard to make this come off like a legitimate sporting organization.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. I don't think like I could ever get into this format the way I do, like when we're talking about like Lucha Underground or Summer of Punk or stuff like that, because it lacks a lot of that kind of like central narrative drive that wrestling kind of came to develop over the years. At least via this, I'm sure like there was more going on when it's an actual episode rather than the Heenan and Monsoon retrospective show. But at the same time, like, it was much fun to like see them, like I said, just pretend. They treated like this was a legitimate sporting event, and you got to really focus on the fighting. And none of the fighting was like the most mind blowing shit I've ever seen, but it was all rock solid. And some surprisingly flashy stuff at times for the era. Like the guys pulled out. It wasn't just like the sort of punch fest you would think of when you think of all like the superstars of the golden age. Like they pulled out some like surprisingly acrobatic moves at times. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, the Dino Bravo match in particular had a really cool way to end.
Oh yeah. But even before that, I'm trying to think. Oh god. There were several boys that got a little flippy with each other.
Yeah. They did the sunset flip thing where the guy was like, "Try not to fall," and then he falls over.
The sunset flip was so cool. Like that's one of those things where like knowing that it's not real makes it more impressive because like the guy had to like fake being on the verge of tipping over and like fight against it, but he did it for a solid like 15
Oh yeah,
seconds
he
or
did.
something.
Yeah,
10,
Brutus
15
Beefcake was the
seconds.
one who did that. He held that for a while.
He was like swimming in the air, and I'm like, how the hell are you maintaining that? That was so cool. I want to know like how you do that. That's like a physical magic trick right there.
Yeah,
That was
really fun.
that was
Really
like my
fun
favorite
that.
athletic moment of the whole episode was that, right? That was so cool. Oh my god.
Yep. So where do we want to start with this?
I mean, we got our focus on the
Sure.
on the Hogan and Andre thing. Which I had forgotten that like Hogan and Andre were buddies for a while.
Yeah. This is like the last bit before the heel turn.
Well,
this is a lot. I put this here because it's the motivating incident. It's the inciting incident to it. Was this little 2-part segment, which I went back and forth on like what are these episodes we should cover, and I kind of figured you needed to see both to get the full point. And so that's why we did it the way we did it.
That's
so fair. Yeah, the January 19th, 87 episode, we get a recap of the Piper's Pit. So I didn't mention it, but a lot of the story of this takes place during the segment called the Piper's Pit, which is like a Roddy Piper themed talk show.
Damn, whatever happened to the in-ring talk shows? Because we covered Piper's Pit, King's Court, Heartbreak Motel, Heartbreak Hotel OG version.
Probably because there's just too many of them. Like at this, knowing from this period in time, I remember you have the Piper's Pit. You have Jake Roberts has one called the Snake Pit.
A lot of pits.
Yeah, eventually you're gonna get Adrian Adonis, who his character is like effeminate man, kind of queer coded. He's the heel, of course. It's great,
of course.
But he has a talk show. He gets a talk show.
The Gay Pit.
No, not the Gay Pit. I don't remember what it's called, but I know he has one. You get the Brother Love show when you introduce that character in a couple of years. So basically, like they just like that was like a go-to move for them.
Brother Love?
Yeah, Brother Love was a parody of preacher of like really, really emotive preachers. Like if you like he painted his face up all red as if he was like because of how like the red faced preachers get, and he has the same like he's the same accent. But he was about love.
Any relation to Dude Love? Oh,
no.
Lame.
Anyway, but yeah, like there's more. But then you mentioned like you have the King's Court, you have the Shawn Michaels said the Heartbreak Hotel. Like is literally like they just like that was like a go-to move for them as
apparently Honky Tonk Man also had the Heartbreak Hotel. I
don't know. I think he was just visiting the real one. We'll talk about that. But yeah, it's basically like they just had so many talk shows. Like that was pre-Attitude Era. That was like their number one like narrative device to have people cutting promos on each other. It
is really funny.
Oh, Brutus Beefcake has one too in the barbershop, but that's later for him too.
Oh my god!
But I was like, remember he got one. Like, there's so many talk shows.
That's like beautifully ridiculous. Of just like, oops, all talk shows.
Yeah, where's the talk show channel? Talk show.
Yeah, no, seriously. That's WWF is a talk show. But yeah, so we see between the two Piper's Pit segments, the designation of two different awards. First is, as you mentioned, the front half, Hulk Hogan getting an award for his third anniversary or his third year as world champion. And you know, he's like he's all happy about it. And at one point Andre shows up and is like, yeah, good job, buddy, this guy's great. And we're like, yeah, it's cool. And he gets this big ass trophy. And you know,
now Jack Tunney slobbers all over Hulk Hogan verbally, because he just goes down as of how great Hulk Hogan is.
I know, what the hell, it felt so like masturbatory. I'm like, like, did Hulk Hogan write this?
Yeah, feels like Hulk Hogan wrote the speech.
Yeah, seriously.
I wish Heenan had tried to say that.
Yeah, dude. We'll get to Heenan.
Yeah,
but yes, and then on the next one, Andre got an award, a noticeably smaller award, for being Intercontinental Champion and just generally being such an important like part. He's the best athlete in the WWF.
Yeah, not Intercontinental Champion. It was that he was undefeated.
Oh yeah, no, sorry,
he was undefeated for he was undefeated for 50.
Yeah.
Before we continue this.
There we are.
David, you back? Okay, yes.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay. Anyway, yeah, okay, undefeated. Yes. He's undefeated for however long. And he starts to hop on mic and he's like, "Oh, yeah, it's a great honor." And then Hulk Hogan like shows up and like shoves the award in his hand and starts just going off about how great Andre is. And Andre gets kind of pissed and walks off.
Yeah, so like after the thing, like the key point is that like is also Hogan framed it a lot about him though. When he talked about how great Andre was, but he still made it about him, where he was
he's like, "This man's my role model.
He's this man, my role model. He's been saying I have modeled my life after Andre the Giant." And Andre, you can just see in his face, he's like, "Dude, yeah, what are you doing?" Especially because, yeah, Andre literally, when he shows up for Hogan's, he literally just says, 3 years is a long time. And then he shakes Hogan's hand and leaves. So not intrusive at all. Meanwhile, Andre, he stops talking. He doesn't even get really one sentence out. He says, "I just have one thing to say." And then comes a Hogan.
Yeah. Although, like, it's kind of funny, like, how they frame it, because, like, Andre clearly is, like, not of many words. So, but it's still, like, they still treat it like he got, like, super cut off. But it is a dick move from Hogan to just, pop in like that and start going off. What I find really funny about it, too, is, like, that it ends up with Andre heel turning and not Hogan, even though Hogan's clearly the asshole in this case.
Not even the last time that's going to happen.
Why am I not surprised?
I mean, you can a lot, like, it's been said, especially if you try to look back on it in a modern lens. It's like, man, Hogan was the dick for a lot of his enemies. Like, he's a dick to Andre. Everyone kind of agrees that Savage had a point about him lusting after Elizabeth.
Yeah. No, I remember talking about that and being like, wait, why is Savage in the wrong here? Hogan's
because Hogan, he can't be the bad guy. He's Hogan.
Yeah, except when WCW comes calling, I guess.
But that's later.
That's later.
Golden Age, Hogan isn't the bad guy ever.
So what I'm hearing is that what I'm hearing is that Hogan is just like Batman for Golden Age heels. He creates all of his own enemies.
He does create a lot of them. I think that, like, I don't know if he ever did anything to Piper. I don't think he did. But, like, Warrior was a good guy story. Bundy, I don't think he would have done anything to Bundy because that's a Heenan thing. But, like, his most morally right feud was definitely Slaughter. When Slaughter was the Iraq sympathizer. And then,
oh God.
Yeah, so Hogan is just a petty asshole all the time. And
Hulk Hogan, petty asshole.
Yeah, he creates as many enemies as just kind of come his way.
Yeah. So that's clearly setting up for Andre turning on Hogan for good reason, let's be honest. And what I find really interesting about that is, okay, so to veer off into it's a tangent for talking about this, but it's like not a tangent for talking about the episode on a whole. Oh my God, commentary. I will say I really enjoyed the Monsoon and Heenan dynamic. The two of them together were a lot of fun. It felt like a much more quaint, but quaint sounds condescending, but I mean it in like the most, like, I am legitimately unironically charmed by this way. It's like this really quaint version of like Jerry Lawler versus anybody. When Lawler was heel, of just like the heel will just say like ridiculous bullshit, and the the face commentator will be like, "Oh, come now."
Mhm.
But it's this great like they're both kind of on the same level of energy. It's not like other it's not like if I'm talking about Lawler, like Lawler's constantly screaming and like his co-host will be like, "Hey, calm down there, buddy."
Yeah,
They're both like
Lawler doesn't have a volume level. Like he's
no,
always like on his like loudest, and Heenan can
yeah.
do that too. We literally saw that last time we were on Nitro. But Heenan can also be his snarky self at a normal human volume.
And it keeps the bit from going stale because like I puzzle sometimes about like why I have a distaste for Lawler at times, even though he's iconic, even though there are some things he says that are like funny and shit. And aside from like the times where his character is just being like a really problematic asshole, like it's just that the character gets so stale because he's just like constantly yelling. He's always at one level, and it never really gives a full like dynamic with any of the faces. But here, Monsoon versus Heenan felt very equal. Um, they're not like it's not Monsoon like down here trying to chastise Heenan who's like all the fucking way up here,
Mhm.
right? There's a balance to it, and so it's this nice back and forth dynamic. They really bounce off each other well, and it leads to a lot of just like funny moments of Heenan being totally detached from reality while
No,
Monsoon is just like he's being he's it's not morally righteous. He's grounded and he's right, but he also
yeah,
has fun. He's wily too. He digs in on Heenan. He'll chastise him in kind of like these
yeah,
snarky ways.
yeah, he's willing to go down to Heenan's level
Yeah.
and be and kind of snipe at him, like
Yep.
especially when he calls him a weasel, and
I know.
and Heenan like wait and just, like that when he always gets called a weasel, Heenan always gets so offended by it and tries to back off of it.
I wasn't aware that Gorilla Monsoon attended the Hassan Piker School of Insults.
or the or like the whole bit about the WrestleMania information where we open the episode where they're advertising for WrestleMania 3 and being like March 29th is the date. And Heenan tries to needle Monsoon about like where is it? And so Heenan decides he's going to investigate this himself. So like he has a phone set up on his side of the desk that he'll call to every once in a while. And he picks up the phone and is apparently writing all these notes. And when he takes the phone down, Monsoon's like, "Well, what'd you find out?" And Heenan goes, "March 29th, that's when WrestleMania is." And Monsoon's like, we already knew that. What I said it at the top of the show. And Heenan is of course being like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't know that. I just found that out.
Heenan's like, "I know things you don't know about WrestleMania." What a fucking liar, dude. What a fucking weaselly little liar, dude. Holy shit.
And and Monsoon is like, you got question marks all over your notes. Just question marks.
Yeah, no, it was so much fun. Like, and a lot of times, Monsoon will be giving, some sort of like measured commentary, and just Heenan will be there, like with his arms crossed, like sulking, slouched in his chair, and just be like throwing snarky comments, like just at the wrestlers that Monsoon's talking about, and he's like,
Heenan is absolutely not afraid to play favorites.
he's not, but it's so much fun. Like it doesn't come off as grating. The dynamic is really pronounced, but in a way it's just straight fun. It's not like one of them is overpowering the other. It's not like either of them are overplaying their bits. They're both they just have a good rapport, and I could watch them commentate back and forth on this forever. It is a ton of fun to watch them together, I think.
Yeah. And it's fun, and I think it's also fun that like they always go back and forth on who kind of wins necessarily. Like Heenan will get his last words in, but then also you'll have times where like Heenan's trying to make a point, and then Gorilla just keeps shutting it down, being like, "And we're going back to the action."
I know, that was so good. They did that in like the one of the last matches. Like they cut back to it, and and Heenan's trying to get a word in edgewise, and Monsoon's just like, nope, going back to the action. Oh well, but nope, back to the action.
He goes, why do you ever ask me anything?
It's a ton of fun. But what I find really interesting about it too is this is something that's a bit of a rarity in wrestling, like commentary, promo cutting, what have you, is Heenan, at least in regards to mostly in regards to the Hogan Andre thing, but in a couple other places too, Heenan actually makes some kind of cogent points. He's talking about how Hogan's coming in and just like making it all about himself. And he and Monsoon's like, oh no, that's no, you're just jealous. Oh, how could he possibly he was saying nice things about Andre. How could he be making it all about himself? But Heenan's right.
He's got a point.
Yeah, he has a couple places where he says things, and he actually has a point, and I think that helps too. Like, it's not just like this is the morally righteous, always correct good guy, and this is the like asshole, always wrong bad guy. Like, it's more of the like it's more of the how do I want to put it? th- the pure of heart um face, the kind of upright one, the kind of like lawful good versus a more jaded perspective. It's not that like Bobby Heenan is straight up evil. He's like super jaded and it makes him an asshole, and he's like lawful evil sort of thing. But he's allowed to be right.
He has the perspective of like cheating is the best because that's how you get ahead.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And
but
a friend in need is a pest.
I know. So he's like an asshole, but it's not like he's evil, and he does make some solid observations. So that's kind of cool too. That like there's some level of like fair and balanced TM with the face versus heel commentating. At least with the Heenan Monsoon bits. The in ring commentary a bit less so, but you know.
No, yeah, the commentators, which is Billy Redfish, I want to hear say, a local Toronto guy, and then at some point Johnny Valiant goes in the booth to do commentary. Like they are unforgiving heels.
Yeah,
just openly advocating.
I know. It's
cheating and debauchery.
I mean that's never really changed, right? The heel commentators have always like they're always root for cheating when their guy's doing it, and they'll always like, you know, make excuses and what have you. I mean, we literally saw this with the whole whether or not Andre you know, actually fully pinned Hogan thing or not. That whole, you know, quote unquote controversy. We've seen this even within this very storyline. So that's always going to be like that. But that said, kind of going back to what I was talking about with the wrestling feeling like, you know, a legitimate sports competition for a lot of this. I did really like too the in-ring commentary treated it a little bit more like they were commentating on like legitimate sports by being like they were a little more analytical with what they were talking about.
Yeah.
They would break down the move sets and they talk about the strengths and weaknesses. And again, not to say that we don't get this in contemporary commentary. We absolutely do, but it was a lot more distilled here. The focus was a lot more on that, and like then you get like the face heel bickering, but it wasn't commenting on the character of the wrestlers. It was commenting on their in-ring work, saying like even if it's ridiculous stuff like what's his face has to take 12 to 14 minutes to fully power up.
Yeah, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yeah. Valentine needing 12 to 14 minutes to power up. Like it's all about their athleticism. Which is kind of a fun it's a fun twist on what I'm used to, in that like they still manage to have the good guy versus bad guy banter, but it's done within the sports framework a lot more rather than like, you know, openly questioning the moral character of each fighter constantly.
Right. It's a difference of priorities of like they're, especially in this point in time, they're trying to make this seem more like a legitimate sport to the audience. So in that sense, you have to talk about it like a sport. Whereas in more modern wrestling that has been a little more loosey-goosey about that concept, is more willing to let the announcers try to, instead of trying to comment on it like a sport, try to push the narrative, try to work through like what the narrative is. And
Mhm.
I don't think either is a bad way to do it. Both both are very understandable as to why you take that approach. It's just different approaches.
I really like this like pure distilled form of wrestling. Um,
Mhm.
it feels it doesn't feel bogged down. Like, sure, it doesn't have like the narrative, like it doesn't have like the compelling narratives that I've been able to experience when I feel like the storytelling really reaches its like peak in terms of its potential. But but on the other side of that coin, it also doesn't suffer from the double-edged sword that a narrative drive can be, in that like if something isn't working, it just it doesn't work for weeks and weeks on end, and it
Mhm.
just stalls, it spins its wheels, it crashes in flames, it sputters out, everything. If the it's simpler, and that's not a judgment one way or the other, because there are good things to the more complex, and there are bad things to the more complex. um but it is simpler, and at the very least that allows you to deliver a more concentrated product, that is even though the kind of like potential threshold for engagement is lower, um the kind of floor for consistent entertainment value is also higher. So
Yeah.
you kind of meet in the middle. So it was just fun. It was just plain fun to see it in this much more sportsy format.
Yeah. And so I guess go ahead and go to the first match of you got the Dream Team, Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Brutus
Mhm.
Beefcake against the US. What? No, it's not the Connection, because that's the Can-Am. US Express, that's it. The
Yeah.
US Express featuring Mike Rotundo and Golden Boy Danny Spivey.
Mike Rotundo, who Austin pointed out to me, in the future becomes IRS, which, oh my god.
Yes. Yeah, it's this a few of these characters in this match are very different from the version of themselves that I'm used to. So
Yeah.
that's neat. Um yeah, it's a fine match. I'm trying to think through like what kind of separates all these matches on this episode. And the thing
Not
that stands,
much.
well, I think little minute things, but I
Well,
agree
yeah.
there's not a lot of things. But I think the biggest thing I would think of with this match is like everybody cheating.
Oh god. Oh yeah, this is the one where I'm like halfway through. The ref was terrible.
No, the ref is like kayfabe an idiot. He's
Yeah.
just letting so much get away with so much shit. Like everybody, especially in comparison to the tag team match in the main event, it was a lot more straightforward. Of like the good guys are gonna do good guy things, not be dicks. The bad guys are perfectly willing to be. Nah, in this match, Rotundo and Spivey are definitely the baby faces, but they're coming down to Valentine and Beefcake's level
Yeah,
of chicanery and nonsense.
I know. Well, yeah, no, there were several points like as the match progressed where I'm like, why the hell is this ref not throwing this match out at this point? Like, so many rules got broken that the outcome became meaningless. Which I'm
Yeah, like
like, why didn't this match get thrown out about like 10 minutes
everything.
ago?
Yeah, everything going wild there. And like,
Oh
I think
god.
that I think looking back on, maybe it makes a little more sense. As I noted to David, is that like the match starts with kind of an unusual format of the good guy team beating down on one member of the bad guy team back consistently. That's a bit of a reversal of a usual tag team match formula.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's kind of weird. And then now that I think about it, well, I guess it makes some sense in that both teams are kind of being dicks. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're being consistent here with the everybody's an asshole theme.
yeah. And
Um
it does end where Dan Spivey was pinning Brutus Beefcake, and for some reason the ref was
looking
distracted by
away.
Mike Rotundo. I don't know why. I don't know what he did. So Valentine runs up to like the top rope. No, he didn't do the top rope, but he runs up and attacks Spivey and hits him in the back, and that knocks Spivey off of Beefcake, and then Beefcake turns over and pins Spivey, and then the ref turns around and notices. And
Yeah.
that's how they win the match.
God, this terrible ref. again, kayfabe terrible, but still, there was
Yeah.
literally a guy like in the middle of a match that yelled "ref" and
Come on, ref! You can hear the
Come on,
crowd
yeah.
yelling at the referee.
But again, it adds to the sportsy feel to be like, oh man, the refs shit. Like the refs, like kind of like I was talking about.
I know that feeling as a football fan.
Yeah, I know that's a whole fraught issue. No, but like I kind of what I was talking about in the first half ended up being kind of prophetic because in all of the matches here, the refs felt like they had a more active role. One of the things that really stuck out to me early on in this first match was, early on, you had people trying to do like I don't know what those are, but like when they had them kind of like choked up against the ropes, you had the ref getting in there a lot to say they had to break the hold at one point or another, and it felt like an actually recognizable cousin to real wrestling in that way, like the ref having to like it's not just like a free for all brawl. It's they have setups and they try to get advantages over each other, and the ref will start and stop and get them into new positions kind of based on what's going on.
Yeah.
That stuck out to me early on. The refs had this really, really active role. They weren't just like dudes randomly like walking around and occasionally yell. No, they were like,
being
they
like,
were
hey,
involved.
no, you can't do that.
Yeah, the refs were not all of them were named, but they were characters in each one. They were recognizable, parts of the narrative of each fight. And that helps with this is a legitimate sport vibe. So it was cool to kind of like from the get-go see just how dedicated they used to be to that aesthetic.
Yeah.
In ways you wouldn't always think of, because like nowadays I take for granted that the ref is there, but just kind of is there and doesn't do much else a lot of the time. But here, like they're so much a part of it, that it feels holistic as a sports match.
Definitely. The match overall is fine. I don't think any of them are that compelling wrestlers.
No.
So like there's good moments, but it's not like wow, really gripped by this.
I enjoy IRS because I know that he's IRS, but that's about it.
Hammer when he like falls down to sell is hilarious.
Oh my god, yeah. The way Hammer sells, he does like the cartoon thing where he'll kind of like stand around in a daze for a second and then just like completely horizontal.
Yeah, flop. Yeah, he's great.
I love that. That's one of those things I will never get tired of wrestlers selling that way. I love it. I love it when wrestlers do the cartoon thing. CM Punk will do that sometimes, and I'm like, just yet another reason why I love you. Like, just I that will never get old. It's such a good visual, and when you do it well, it looks like you're a like 3D cartoon character. It makes me so happy. Oh my god.
Greg Hammer, the Hammer Valentine, he warmed up and he got the dub.
Yep. He had his time to warm up, which there are time limits on these matches too, which we'll talk about later. But oh my god,
that'll come up later in a negative, I think, for sure. But yeah, they again part of the legitimate sport vibe is to try to have time limits. You see, AEW also has explicit time limits for the exact same reason.
Really?
Yes.
I don't remember that from like the couple of times we've watched.
No, they do. They've even had a couple of draws. I'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have legitimate time limits that they mention on the show of like, this is the time limit. That's how long we got. Anyway, moving on. I don't remember if the Dino Bravo match came. We'll go and talk about this before we mention come back to one of the interview bits, but I don't remember what the timing was exactly. It doesn't really matter. But the next match was Dino Bravo and Scott Mcgee that we had in progress. Didn't even bother starting from the beginning.
I know.
That match was like, it's probably the closest thing to a squash we have on this show, a jobber squash.
Yeah.
Just because Scott Mcgee nobody cares. He doesn't do any. He doesn't really make himself known at any point. It is all about making. Yeah, I don't know either. It's all about making Dino Bravo look like a powerhouse. Works.
Yeah,
for the most part. Only thing interesting is we kind of hinted at like that cool athletic ending where Scott McGee is trying to run off the ropes and do like a crossbody. Dino Bravo anticipates that and ducks down and makes Scott Mcgee fly over him. And then
my God, it was so good.
And then he picks up Mcgee to pin him for us, hit him with a suplex and pin him. That was so cool.
I love when the fight choreography just has like little bits of like little surprising moments like that, because like technically that's not a hard thing to execute. Like, you know, you hit the deck and the guy jumps over you. But like it moves so quickly that like you don't expect that, and like it's not a common thing to see done. So whenever somebody executes it, it does kind of catch you in a flash. You're like, oh shit, oh no. So it was just so much fun to see like the little reversal like that. Again, simplicity that is well executed. Simplicity seems to be a motif here.
Yes.
It works, and it works well, and I was compelled by that, and I was like, and I loved watching the replay, and it didn't, feel less impressive seeing it the second time around. They did a good job with just those little moves.
You mentioned I made fun of all their replays as being like Zack Snyder-esque, as they keep doing all these slow-mos.
True.
And then before we get to the next, but whenever I'll say they give us a bit with the honky tonk man outside of the Elvis Heartbreak Hotel. I'm pretty sure it's a restaurant, I guess. But as I mentioned to David, is an oft forgotten part of this is that Honky Tonk Man is a heel, but this is like early stage heel because he used to be a babyface, and
so wild.
The exact same character, and nobody cared. In fact, I believe one of the impetuses for his heel turn is that they did like a WWE magazine fan poll of like how well do you like the Honky Tonk Man, and the votes were a resounding no.
Oh my God, was it like just him they asked about?
I think they asked about a couple of different people, but like they asked about like, do you like the Honky Tonk Man, and the fans vote, and the mail-in vote was in no. And so he kind of hooks up with Jimmy Hart and becomes a heel. And so he's with Jimmy Hart now.
But did that make people like him?
No, it made him dislike him though. Like that was the heel move though. Is they leaned into the fact that he's obnoxious. As opposed to trying to be like, look at this guy. Isn't he likable? He likes Elvis. That's the kids of the 80s loved Elvis, like he's such a likable guy, and everyone's like, no, he's kind of obnoxious and his character is dumb. So then they're like, wait, what if we made him a bad guy?
What if we lean in, baby?
What if we lean into the fact that everyone thinks he's dumb, he's an idiot, but he's at the Heartbreak Hotel, and they're like trying to talk about he's gonna have his honky tonk, but you're gonna have your own restaurant, baby, ha. And Honky's like, yeah, I'm going to have my own restaurant. And what we're going to have at the restaurant, we're going to have the Honky Burgers. Oh, yeah, baby, Honky Burger. Oh, baby.
Honky Burgers. What the hell?
No, it was a thing, I guess. We're just,
oh, my God.
He's Elvis. Do you get it? He's Elvis.
Really? Yeah, except like as he gets more and more heel, he just kind of starts denying that Elvis exists, right?
Yeah. He leans away from Elvis existing at some later as he gets more heel.
So stupid. I love how detached from reality that the heels of this era are. But yeah, so that was an interesting thing. Yeah, no, they said they do like they say something about the Heartbreak Hotel, and I was like, the fuck, Shawn Michaels here? No,
I was like, oh my God, we're doing it. I didn't realize we were doing a honky tonk bit in this episode.
Oh, I was not prepared to see his ugly mug again. Oh boy.
Oof. The next match is Paul Roma and Barry O, which I thought would be more jobbery, but he really kind of wasn't.
No, and who turns out is freaking Randy Orton's uncle.
Yes, he's short for Barry Orton.
And his real first name is Randall.
Yeah, so I made a joke. It's like alternate reality where he goes by Randall Orton, and instead of Randy Orton, the modern wrestler, he goes by his middle name, so he's Keith Orton.
Yeah. That's so funny that he like that. I said this to you when we were watching. I love when wrestling runs in the family. There's something there's something that's so wholesome about it, of just like this very weird thing being your family business.
Mhm. They really try to make Paul Roma seem out like a future star in the making here. And I'm afraid I just don't see it. So kind of took me out of
Yeah.
the entire thing. Like he feels generic. Like that was my takeaway from Paul Roma. Is
Yeah.
he looks a lot like half the roster of baby faces around here.
That I mean, the way they talked about him felt reminiscent of how 1-2-3 Kid gets talked about in the new generation.
Mhm.
Except like 1-2-3 Kid had this standout star making bullshit um to like actually back it up. Whereas here, the fuck is Roma?
Yeah, he doesn't like this the 1-2-3 Kid, not to make this too much of a pun on his future name. He just had that X factor about him that like made him seem like be like, yeah, like when they talk about him as if like he's a star of the future, you could buy that.
Yeah.
Looking at Paul Roma, I just don't buy him as being like a top guy in the sometime in the future.
Yeah. Part of it's the name too. What the hell kind of champion name is Paul Roma? I don't know.
It's just so it's just a whatever name.
Yeah, it sounds like it should belong to a jobber. Not Randy.
Barry.
Barry O. Dear Lord, Barry O. Sounds more like he could be an actual character, a dumb one.
A dumb, yeah, the name's very dumb. Not a star name either, but more memorable than Paul Roma.
Yeah, seriously. And with a more memorable get up, he's got like these very colorful like tights pants, and I loved it. But yeah. It was a good showing. I think athletically it was a better showing from Barrio than it was from Roma too. Roma was just kind of like par for the course. Barrio actually like had some moves to him. I think.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, Barrio was all right, but just not impressed with Paul, especially by how much they were trying to talk him up.
Well, there's a reason we haven't heard of Paul Roma outside of this. So.
Yeah, Paul Roma does not have us. It isn't exactly a Hall of Fame caliber guy. Looking back now, he's just there.
He's just there, but
and then I did this in the wrong order, but I just want to go ahead and skip to the 2-part non-wrestling parts they did left. If they do this like video package hyping up King Kong Bundy versus Kamala as kind of like a who's the better giant battle thing. Which I think is a little weird because they're both heels. I don't know why they're doing this. Like, I'm pretty sure he's a heel. I'm pretty sure Kamala's a heel. I don't think he's a baby face, but it again feels weird that they would point him at Bundy then, who is definitely a heel as part of the Heenan family.
Look, we've learned with Vince, sometimes aesthetic matters more than like narrative sense.
Yeah, so they're talking about their big moves. We get to see how uncomfortably dated Kamala is, because the full name of Kamala is Kamala the Ugandan Giant. So he wears the face paint, and he's got the tiki mask, and he's got the skirt, like the I can't think of what material I'm talking about here.
The grass,
the burlap, like the burlap skirt. And it's like, oh, great. This is such a great portrayal of an
and you have Brooklyn Brawler in his beekeeper costume.
Yeah, as his handler or whatever. But then otherwise it's just like Bundy gets to cut a promo and just yells at like how he's stronger than Kamala. I don't know what this builds to at all, so I can't really comment on it or like talk about the storyline because I didn't even know this ever happened.
Yeah, I don't know. Bundy's fun enough. Kamala is cool. Thanks for that. Maybe we'll see more of it in the future.
I guess.
Hopefully not if we're lucky. I don't want to deal with the racism.
Yeah, we get the Can-Am Connection interview.
Oh yeah. God.
Yeah, it's just an interview between, the members of the Can-Am Connection, the very Canadian Rick Martell, and the very American Tom Zink. David, audio. No audio from you, David. I have no idea why this happened. We had technical issues about this when we were trying to get this set up, and then what do you know? It happened again. So I'm gonna ramble here for a second. But yeah, Tom Zink, not Tom Zink first. Let's start with Rick Martell. Rick Martell he's using a lot of those classic. Yeah, David.
Hello, please.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, Rick Martell. He's just saying generic babyface stuff and using a lot.
Yeah.
To fill time between sentences. It happens.
Oh, and he speaks in French at one point.
Oh yes, he ends the interview using his native French because he's French Canadian.
He asks that was Gene who's no that was the random
not Gene
guy.
That was random. That was this random interview. I don't know his name. Couldn't tell you who it is.
He like asked permission to speak in his native language, and he just goes off and we're like, okay.
Yeah, and then Zink gets the mic and he starts talking about like they are the connection. Zink and Martell are the connection, but also the fans are the connection. They're all connected. Really.
We're kumbaya, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. It was just kind of generic stuff.
Yeah, nothing real special going on here.
It was fun to hear dudes speaking French, I guess.
Yeah. Johnny Valiant was trying out some French when he was managing Dino Bravo.
What the hell? Oh, I will also say the Can-Am connection also they look very similar to each other.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, like they're both tan dudes with mullets and about the same size and similar faces, I even think. I was like, they siblings?
No, they're not. They're not even the same nationality.
Yeah.
But one thing that I don't know. I enjoyed it more a couple weeks back on this show because I did watch some of the primetime wrestling episodes before this, is they did a bit where like they like to show off how much a heartthrobs the Can-Am connection are. As they're coming into the building, like this gaggle of girls is like chasing them, and security has to push them out, and their shirts are all torn open as if the women were tearing their shirts off. Like I thought that was funny. I thought that was kind of a cute.
Okay, that is funny.
Beating off the women with a stick over here, not this interview. Them just being like, yeah, we're babyface.
I like. There's something, maybe this is problematic. There's something I always find really funny about like the having to like fend off like hordes of lady admirers and just being like, no, I don't want this. Get away.
Oh, my woes. I'm just too attractive.
Maybe it's just like the awkward bean in me that's like I wouldn't know how to handle that. So I feel like this is speaking to me.
Yeah, I get that.
but regardless, so okay, that does sound kind of charming.
Yeah. Then our second to last match, we get Don Morocco and Coco Beware, which David had didn't realize that like when they kept talking about Frankie and birds, the Coco Beware having a parrot was a literal.
I thought it was Bobby Heenan making a derogatory comment about like some woman that Coco carries them.
He was shitting on an actual parrot.
Why is there an actual parrot at ringside, dude? I can't wrap my head around this.
That's not the only animal on this show.
But Matilda isn't kept around at ringside.
It's true, but yeah, they keep Frankie the parrot like on a stand, literally in the middle of the entrance ramp.
How they train him to sit there for an entire match is beyond.
No, the parrot never moved. It was incredibly well trained to sit there.
I have no idea. I guess back in the day, WWF like could afford to hire like top tier animal handlers, because I'll talk about Matilda too, but like why? How is the parrot just sitting there? Why does it never feel the need to like take to the skies in this very spacious arena?
This huge spaces arena with thousands of people yelling.
I know, and it's just
just sitting there,
and a fight taking place within very close proximity to it. Unfazed parrot, good parrot, best boy. Good parrot. I love it.
Good parrot. Get a cracker. Yeah, Don Morocco and Coco Beware, they do a very standard, big strong boy bad guy against littler guy babyface.
Yeah.
It's very, very basic story in that regard. And oh man, they were glistening.
They were. Oh, they got sweaty.
Don Morocco is a sweaty boy.
They were. I I I like how like compact Coco looks. Like he feels short. He feels like a short boy, but like one of those short boys that can like kick your ass.
Oh yeah, Coco Beware is great on the babyface comeback. Doing the top rope drop kick, and then he throws Morocco into the ring, into the corner, and Morocco like flips, and then he starts doing running punches to his head.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
I would say it was a pretty fun match till the end, which was weird.
It's so stupid. It's fun. Again, all the matches on this were fun, but yeah, the ending to this. Hey, remember those time limits we mentioned earlier? Yeah, this one actually came into play. All the matches we watched on this were like actually decently long matches, which was also part of the fun. Like it wasn't any like 5-minute squashes. They all ran like I think through commercial breaks.
I think the Dino Bravo one didn't, but that's the only one.
Yeah, but like I was just having so much fun with Valiant on the side. I didn't even give a shit.
Yeah.
Just like but yeah. But this one, they actually ran into their 15-minute time limit, and the match was declared a draw, and the audience was pissed, and I think I was too.
Right. So the thing is, draws can work in wrestling. There's plenty of examples of this, but to kind of pick apart some problems. One, it didn't really feel like the wrestlers knew that they were at their time limit. Because like a lot of time limit draws, they'll space it out so precisely that they'll have some big dramatic moment right before the time limit. Usually like a pinfall or a submission attempt to like really amp up this tension that like, oh shit, are they going to win before the time runs out? And then they don't. But this match, no, it's like they just kind of have to stop. Like Coco Beware is in the middle of his like big comeback. He's laying in the punches on Morocco, and then suddenly, well, bell rings, time's up, and it's like, okay,
and we're like,
okay, I guess it's over. So you have that problem, and then the second problem is the announcers don't really know it's time limit either, because they both just kind of casually mention that like, it's been about 15 minutes. We're coming up near the end of the match, and 30 seconds later, the match is over. There was no build up to the drama of like, oh shit, this could actually run out of time. Because by the time they decide to try to add that drama point, it is over.
Yeah, and like I assume in this episode, and I assume this as a broad trend, the time limit doesn't get rubbed up against very often. So like it's not like some like Hitchcockian thing where you tell the audience at the beginning there's a time limit and they're going to be suspenseful about can they reach a decision within the time limit. No, the audience isn't goddamn thinking of that. So there's no like satisfaction to this. It's just annoying to reach the time limit and like have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, most of the time the time limits don't really come into play. So, and it can work when they do call out to it, but you have to call out to it. As an example of how a way to make it work really well is New Japan Pro Wrestling has very strict time limits. Every 5 minutes, their announcer will come on be like 5-minute call, 25 minutes to go. So the audience is constantly reminded of how much time it's been and how much time is left. So that it's not just like, oh, I guess it's over.
Yeah.
That's kind of the real problem, I think, is there's this sense of, oh, I guess it's over, as opposed to a real dramatic end point.
Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly what it felt like. I'm like, oh, it's over. That's unfortunate. There was no satisfaction to it. So the audience was pissed. I was annoyed. It wasn't a great way to go about it. But like, that's just like the quirk of this company. Like, still, it's the late 80s, and there's still got a lot of identity finding to do, a lot of things to learn. It's one of those things I'm almost willing to forgive, of just like a quirk of the early days. I literally made the comment to you while we were watching of like, gee, I wonder why they did away with this, because clearly WWE doesn't work.
Yeah, WWE stopped caring about time limits. I think New Generation was about when they rounds about that time was when they were like, who cares? They will end when they end, and they conveniently always end in the correct time period, time block.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, well done. I mean, right, it's what you want in your wrestling of you know, again, the legitimate sports feeling versus the, like, you know, reality show where with scripted fighting feeling of, like, for once, I don't feel the creeping feeling of, like, wow, within this narrative, everything just happens to drop perfectly into Vince McMahon's lap and nothing's planned for, versus, like, oh, this feels like, you know, legitimate and everything's, like, properly scheduled, but damn, there's no narrative.
Yeah, there's no real narrative flow to any of these matches except
Yeah,
the
and
end. The
sometimes,
main event is really only one of these that has any significance on anything, I think.
yeah, and like sometimes a time limit gets rubbed up against, and like, oh shit, well, I guess the match ends without a decision. Cool. Whatever.
Yeah, but then our main event, the tag team one half of the tag team champions, Davey Boy Smith and the Junkyard Dog, take on the Hart Foundation. And the story of this match is that Danny Davis is a piece of shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, this was the payoff to the bad guy ref you were telling me about earlier of like, yeah, no, well, what you said was entirely correct. It felt like a parallel to the first match where there was definitely some hardcore cheating going on. But at this time it was completely enabled by the ref, and yeah, it was all like him doing it in these very subtle ways. It wasn't some like cartoony thing. It was him like giving himself a shit ton of plausible deniability to help out the Hart Foundation.
Yeah, like the pretty much entire first portion of the match before the commercial break was built around the idea of like hair pulling. So you'd get these situations where, you know, one or the two good guys would get the Hart Foundation up against the ropes, and the ref would be like, yeah, you know, get off of that. But then he'd also be like, hey, no hair pulling. When the story being, of course, no, he didn't pull the hair. What the ref is just being a dick. But he gets plausible deniability because, you know, they were tussling up against the ropes. You know, maybe he saw wrong. You know, he gives himself these outs to argue that he wasn't being unfair.
Well, I mean, one of the most pointed ones was like the one where he's like getting Jim Neidhart back in the corner. Brett was fighting in the ring, and Jim, the Anvil Neidhart, pops into the ring, and he's trying to push Neidhart back out of the ring. And while he's doing that,
Davey Boy,
thank you, Jesus. Davey Boy gets a pin on Brett, but he doesn't see it for a solid like 10 seconds because he's pushing Neidhart in the corner. So he's like enforcing a rule against the heel.
He's taking his slow time to get Neidhart out of there.
Yeah,
back in position.
He's enforcing the rule against the heel, but oops, it just so happens that because of that, he doesn't see the face get the what would have been the match-winning pin.
Oh well, it happens.
Mm.
And like it goes that round and round the whole match of like, and yeah, you make a good point to the parallel. Is it like there's a lot of messy nonsense that happens in this match, just like in the first tag team match. But the first tag team match, it felt like the ref was just incompetent because they don't call out the idea of like that being an issue. Whereas in this match, it's 100% intentional that like the Hart Foundation is getting away with stuff because Danny Davis is pointedly favoring them in all of his calls.
Yeah, no. It's a very I like how sneaky it is, and I liked too. There was this visual representation. This is the crooked ref, and that at one point Danny Davis's shirt gets like partially untucked, and it just stays that way. I have never seen that happen to a ref in any case.
Either, and I was like, dude, tuck your shirt in.
I know, but it was very it was this great little like visual distinction of like, this is the evil ref, see his unkempt shirt.
Yeah. And I think this is your first intro to I'd say it's the first intro to the Junkyard Dog, but he doesn't really do a whole lot because, and I get why, because he's a replacement for Davey for Dynamite Kid here. Like the Hart Foundation doesn't really have any beef with the Junkyard Dog. They have beef with Davey Boy Smith, so that's where the majority of this match is for.
He do be a loud boy though.
Oh, he is so loud. Oh yeah, let's go, Davey Boy. Like he's so loud.
Yeah, no. It was kind of funny that like you were not exaggerating.
Yeah, he is a cartoon character come to life with the junkyard dog.
Um, yeah, no, I was just watching it of like I didn't realize that sound was coming from him at first. I thought it was coming from like the same audience dude that was going like, "What are you doing, ref?" in like the first match. And then I slowly realized his mouth was moving in sync with those sounds. I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yep, that's that's JYD.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I the Heart Foundation match too here. This kind of this headline match. Um, it was it was interesting for me to watch because I remember distinctly in like one of our very first 80s era episodes we covered. It might have even been the first one. We saw a Heart Foundation match, and
I believe it was the first one actually.
I likened them for some reason to like cartoony henchmen. And now looking back, knowing what I kind of like, having the appreciation I have for like the Heart Foundation for the Hearts, for Jim Neidhart, for all that. Um, I don't know why the hell I said that.
I mean, to be fair, they were doing henchman work for Honky Tonk Man the first time we ever saw them.
They were, but like it's so bizarre for me to look back on that comment and like for me to compare that against like now what I understand about their whole body of work and just how dignified they are as individual performers. Um, that I couldn't like I kind of had to sit there and be like, damn, what was I talking about back then? But what that kind of helped me realize too, because I was thinking about like, you know, the little bits of umbrage or the umbrage I took with like the 80s era. I was sitting there being like, what's different here? Why am I enjoying because I think part of it is just like added perspective now of like I have more of an appreciation for why the history the way is it why the history is the way that it is. But I started to think of like, what is the difference? Why am I enjoying this more now than I did like when we first watched? Um, and I think what it might be is that the golden age, like, or what we saw of the golden age way back when, it's like I've talked about the new generation as like a Frankenstein of eras before. The golden age even in some ways feels like that too, because the golden age, like going into like the late 80s, early 90s, that was that was a Frankenstein between like them trying to push it as a legitimate sportsy thing and them trying to like introduce all these like big narrative aspects to it. Um
Yeah,
and
yeah, there's
sorry,
also I think there's also like the glitz and glamour of the Saturday night's main events in particular, in a way that like these matches, because they're just house show matches that they are going to put on TV. Like it has that like different ambiance than what they're trying for when they're like on their NBC specials.
Yeah. It's it but it didn't feel what's the term? What's the term I'm looking for here? Like when we watched it, there was this hokiness to it because it was kind of a state where it's going from sportsy to narrative. Um, and here with it being like all sports all the time, um, again the kind of that kind of distilled feeling I talked about earlier was very pervasive, and I got to sit there really appreciating the early days of the Heart Foundation with the added benefit of being you know, a fan in 2021 who knows the whole history of these guys and just how fucking respectable they are. Um whereas back then, A, I didn't have the perspective, but B, like there was probably something about the way it was done that it didn't get to show that off quite as much. Um it that could be part of why a lot of stuff about that era turned me off, is because it felt like this weird in between stage between these two things, these two elements of wrestling that I really enjoy. I like the sportsy elements, I like the narrative elements, but something about the way they were in like the very late 80s through a lot of the 90s up until like the up until the Attitude Era, it was kind of in this transitionary period with the two of those where those two things almost felt in conflict a lot of the times, I
Mhm.
think. And you obviously you're more the historian here than I, and you can tell me if that's an incorrect read. But at least to me, kind of like trying to make sense of this all and think of it through the lens of like, damn, I'm really enjoying the Howard Foundation here, and what the fuck was I talking about early on? Um, I'm realizing like there's this tension between those two things that doesn't exist later on, because early on they didn't have like that tension to begin with, and later on they finally figured out the formula and finally figured out the balance. What's your kind of take on that?
I mean, yeah, I can see where you see that of like they're like it's supposed to be trying to take itself so seriously as a sport, but then like you have these clearly fictional narratives, and I think that the way the 80s gets out around that is to not go too crazy. Like there's a lot of drama to it, and there's like they have a lot of like dramatic storylines, but they're also very simple and told very basically through like matches and like just yelling at each other and as promos at a mic at an interview set. And I do think that like as they transition more into trying to be like a TV narrative and what all that and being a TV soap opera and all that entails, like that does run in conflict with what they're doing in 87. Like it doesn't quite work the same way. Like it's very hard to balance both of those concepts. They don't go together that great.
Yeah, I think balance is the key word there. Um, no, realizing now like that the narrative elements weren't used to be not nearly as heavy as they got. Um, it must have been a culture shock to like just all of a sudden like boom, everything's a lot more story driven these days. Um, and it felt like early on they were trying to express that narrative through the old fashioned way, but
Mm-hmm.
with how heavy things were getting, that doesn't quite work. And it wasn't until like kind of the modern sensibilities on promos and stuff that it really started to all come
Mm-hmm.
together. Um, it's a lot of it's how do you make it aesthetically work, and that will determine like um the how effective the narrative feels, because if you're presenting it just through like interview segments and stuff, then it feels stilted, and that was a lot of the issue I had, is like a lot of it felt stilted, whereas like in modern day it's reality TV basically. So
Mm-hmm.
it reads like it reads like a fictional narrative with a 3 act structure sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Like this it is early era is a lot more basic in how they decide to try to tell storytelling, as you say, as you point out. Yeah, it's still following a very old school philosophy about how wrestling storytelling works. Is you can have dramatic elements, yes, but it's still all about like basic interview setup. It is 99% basic interview setups and matches. They're not doing anything that crazy.
Yeah,
You know,
no.
like the lengthy monologues that WWE has become known for, like those don't exist. We're doing matches here. The closest you're going to get to the talk shows is the closest to that kind of concept you're going to get.
Yeah, no. It feels a lot different. It feels, again, like they're trying to present like a legitimate sports show.
Mhm.
And the
And
simplicity.
legitimate sports don't have guys go out there and monologue for
Yeah,
15 minutes
exactly.
before they have a match.
Not a single damn person grabbed a mic after this match, which I noticed too. Like that was
Mhm.
conspicuously absent. Um, so it is funny that again, simplicity keeps it from some of the things that have really excited me about some of the things we've watched in the past from this company. But but it keeps things simple and
And
allows you.
it keeps things working within the way they're trying to
Yep.
present this aesthetically.
Yeah, and it keeps things moving along at a nice enough pace too, that I never felt like super like oppressed by the presence of one storyline or another, because it's
Mhm.
just fight to fight to fight with some fun commentary in the middle.
Yeah. So the main event ends when to call the kind of the culmination of the heel ref is that so they're doing so he tries to the referee is messing around with Jim Neidhart to explicitly give Brett time to fuck around and not lose. So Brett pins JYD. But then, while the referee has still got his back turned, messing around with Neidhart, Davey Boy Smith runs in and flips the pin over. So now JYD is pinning Brett. Referee doesn't notice this. So he quick turns around and does a fast count because he's trying to help Brett cheat to win. So he's trying to make it easy. But then he realizes what he did after he did the fast count. He realized he made a mistake, and he gave JYD the win.
Yeah, which I kind of figured it was going to end up that way. A, because main events don't usually tend to end in the heels winning. And B, it's really, really funny to have like the crooked ref screw you over, even though he's in your favor.
Yeah. So the Hart thing, I guess it's a nice thing that the Hart Foundation aren't too mad at him about it. Like they kind of take it in stride overall and just be like, darn it.
Yeah.
But then they're still trying to jaw jack, and here comes Matilda. And so God. Because at the beginning of the match when Matilda comes out, she is going at the bad guy, at the heels.
Again, how do you train them to do that?
I assume they train her to like attack on command, and so that like Davey Boy can just like quietly command her when he needs her to do that.
I know, but like, how do you do that without getting Jim and Brett actually fucked up?
Oh yeah, Jim runs across the ring to get out of the way, and Matilda backs Brett into a corner, so he has to climb up the turnbuckle.
And she even starts to jump toward him.
Yeah, she was going hard at Brett. But then after the match, as the heels kind of try to jaw jack, Davey Boy grabs Matilda and has Matilda chase them off, and they all run off, and that's how the show ends.
Yeah, no, which was cute. I like Matilda. Matilda's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Matilda's good. You know, a good boy. She's great.
Good
and
boy.
Then, well, that's the phrase, isn't it? You know, good boy.
I guess so.
You know, everyone calls the dog a good boy. Yeah, so
yeah, fair enough.
I was working at it. Anyway, so match ends, and we get the hype for the next episode that I don't think we're gonna watch, but I guess to go and mention it is it's the 100th episode, and Gorilla Monsoon is all happy about it, and he tries to get Heenan to be happy because most of Heenan's family is gonna be there, but Heenan is being himself about it, and he's like, you know, maybe you're not gonna, and Gorilla Monsoon gives a dig at him of like, you're not gonna make it at the 200th episode, and Heenan's like,
what the hell kind of threat was that?
And Heenan's like, well, you're not going to make it to the 101st.
What kind of threat was that?
Yeah. And Heenan's like, tries to be like, I got an anniversary coming up. It's going to be the 1-year anniversary of me carrying this show. And that's kind of what we sign off on.
Yeah. It was cute. Again, I love their dynamic. Just kind of like that, like Vickery odd couple sort of thing. It's adorable.
Yep.
And it's a lot of fun. There's some genuinely funny moments.
Yeah. So that kind of wraps up our first time as in a real storyline as part of our back in the 80s. Overall fun episode. I really like the Hogan Andre stuff, and good because that was the big story beat. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And like Andre seems to be like in a place right now where like he's still like pretty able to do stuff, so I don't think it's gonna be super depressing to see this play.
Yeah, this is like Andre's last great stand as a physical specimen. Like pretty much right after, like he does all right with Hogan here, but like pretty much right after that is like, well, we're done.
Well, because Hogan Andre, and again we'll get there, but Hogan Andre at WrestleMania 3 is pretty legendary of a fight, right?
Yes,
and it's not just iconic. It's not just like Hogan doing all the legwork while Andre just like staggers around in pain. Like it's actually like Andre's putting in some of the work too, right?
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Okay.
No reason to talk about that now, I think. But yeah, I will say that I think that Andre physically is as good as he can get by this point.
Okay. Yeah,
He doesn't have a lot of time left. That's why they did this. That's why they did this match when they did. Not only is this kind of like that'll get people to buy WrestleMania, but also it's like if we want to do Hogan Andre, like this is it.
This
like we're doing this now, or we're never doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was kind of like my one point of trepidation going into this is like, oh God, it was really depressing last time. Do I want to do this again? But we've rewound several years. So I think we're going to be in a place where it'll be like actually fun.
It'll be fine. Andre's health hasn't deteriorated enough for this to be, I think, just sad to watch.
Yay! Okay, I'm looking forward to this then.
Yeah. So
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So next time on this show, normally we would be back to Lucha Underground as part of our.
Do we have a good one for you guys?
Yes. Again, normally. Yeah, this has been on the cards for a couple months now. But anyway, as I was going to say, is normally we go back to Lucha Underground as part of our normal schedule, but a unique opportunity. Hey, do you see how I did that there? As arisen. So the WWE is back on the road, and on the day this airs, actually, for you guys, the day this airs will be a live show in Detroit. David is in Michigan, and I will be up there with him, in fact, to go to the show. So our next episode is going to be about WWE house shows, and specifically the one that we're going to.
Yes.
As WWE has returned to touring after a year and a half.
We've teased this one off and on. But now it's actually happening. We kind of get to drop the announcement, and I'm so excited. This is gonna be my first live wrestling show. Certainly my first time getting to experience this, like with Austin live within the confines of our podcast. And it's gonna be a ton of fun. This is just such an exciting thing for me, and I'm so happy we get to kind of share it with the show.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one to talk about. So then, David, go ahead and hit the plugs.
Yes, sir. All righty, my friends. Thank you all once again for joining us on another episode of the Noobs and Knockouts podcast. If you are a returning listener, viewer, what have you, thank you ever so much for once again welcoming us back into your eardrums and your eyeballs. We are delighted to spend this time with you. If you are a first time listener or viewer or what have you with us, welcome. We are delighted to have you. We hope you continue to keep joining us in the future. If you would like to do so and you're not entirely sure how, not to worry, I have you right there. First of all, subscribe to us on YouTube. We are the Noobs and Knockouts podcast on YouTube. Hit subscribe. Ring that bell. Make sure it turns a nice solid color, not just a little outline bell. You want to hit the bell to make sure you get notifications every time we drop new content. It's a ton of fun. In the more recent episodes, you can see our lovely little faces talking going as we talk. Austin is also kind enough to organize all the storylines we follow on our YouTube channel into their own individual playlists. So if there's an era or a company you have a particular interest in following with us, or a certain set of story arc episodes you really enjoy. Personally, I love the Summer of Punk episodes myself. You can check those out in a nice little organized way. You can also find us on 3 of the best places to find your podcast if you're interested in an audio experience only. Those would be Spotify, Apple, and Google. Give us ratings, give us downloads, give us reviews. Just let us know you enjoy the show, and let the algorithm know you enjoy the show. We have those little boosts and metrics too, all that good stuff. Yeah. Be sure to check us out. Unfortunately, we can't organize things into playlists over there, but still add us to your playlist and your downloaded episodes. It's a ton of fun. We would love to have you on, or we would love for you to have us on your Spotify's and the like. You can also find us on social media. We have a Twitter at Noobs and Knox Pod. That's Noobs, the letter N, Knox Pod. We tweet out a whole bunch of good stuff. We like to just engage with the broader wrestling fandom community as a whole. We will post every time we drop new episodes. We send out some dank memes sometimes, and of course the staple of our Twitter page, Austin likes to live tweet his wrestling watching experience. My friend, what is on the docket coming up?
Yes, as I do every week, we will be live tweeting AEW Dynamite live on TNT at 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday night, because why not? Why not monetize the one wrestling show that I consistently watch live every week? However, I also keep up with WWE and Impact Wrestling, and so when they or AEW has a pay-per-view coming to town, we'll be live tweeting that as well. Unfortunately, right now we are in a lull in the pay-per-view schedule. No, there is basically nothing announced. I will say, go ahead and mention the next pay-per-views. Is that live on the Peacock on Peacock will be WWE's next pay-per-view, SummerSlam, August 21st. 2021 should be a good one. It should be a fun time. But right now there are no matches announced, just rumors and setups, but nothing official. Then September 5th, 2021 is AEW's next pay-per-view, All Out. Oh man, so much exciting stuff is rumored for that show. You know, just keep an eye out for a certain Punk, maybe.
God,
the rumor mill is to be believed.
Do they have your attention yet?
But as for now, we have nothing confirmed official, so I will not say anything about that. And Impact Wrestling is next pay-per-view is Bound for Glory, October 23rd. Obviously, we're way too far out to have anything set for that. But should be a really fun show because they have confirmed that the Bound for Glory will have wrestlers from Impact, from New Japan Pro Wrestling, from AEW, and from AAA in Mexico. Who knows who else could show up? It should be their last pay-per-view, Slammiversary, was a whole big show of surprises and a lot of fun and just overall a lot of good times. I'll talk for All Out and Bound for Glory. I'll talk more about how to buy those shows when they get a little bit closer. But as for now, that is what is on the schedule upcoming.
Yeah, no. So it's all gonna be good stuff, guys. Especially if we get that AEW thing that we're thinking. So be sure to check that out. Austin's live tweeting is awesome. I love reading it whenever he's putting it out. It's really insightful. It's really funny. It's very very sharp and witty at times. It's just a good time. If you guys like watching those shows, let us keep you a little bit of company while you do so. Not a bad idea. Phenomenal. You can also we also have a Gmail account. On Gmail, we are noobs and knockouts pod at gmail.com. That's noobs, the word and this time, knockouts pod at gmail.com. Just send us send us things. Say hi. Tell us how much you like the show, how much you like our sexy voices. Any requests you have for things that we cover, any suggestions, things you like about the show, things you don't like about the show, any of that sort of stuff. We just love it when people say hi. We would love to say hi back. So be sure to email us at noobsandknockoutspod at gmail.com. Finally, you can subscribe to us on our Patreon. We are also the Noobs and Knockouts podcast on Patreon. $1 a month gets you early access to episodes and a shout out at the end of each episode.
See you guys next time.
Hasta luego.